Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Educator Wellness Revolution. I'm Gracie.
And I am Scott.
We're here today with Tiara Hudson, who is a longtime educator, and she works in early childhood education at AppleTree here in Washington, D.C. And welcome to the podcast, Tiara.
Thank you for having me.
And the backstory of why we're doing this episode is that Tiara is also an Empower Ed Fellow. And I got to meet her at one of the orientations, and we've solicited for podcast guests. And Tiara approached me afterwards and said, you should do an episode about self-awareness in educators. And I got very excited because this is a word that we hear a lot of. Self-awareness, I think another version of it is accountability, and another version of it is professionalism. And I think in almost every conversation we have with teachers or admin, those words come up. And yet we haven't done an episode really diving deep into them. So thank you so much for the idea.
You're welcome.
So let's start by learning a little bit more about you. Can you introduce yourself, give a little bit more of your background in education, and then also your interest in educator wellness?
Okay. So I'm Tiara Hudson. I am a preschool teacher. I started out working at a special needs only school. So I was a dedicated aide essentially to a student who had a muscle, her nervous system basically deteriorated as she got older, and she could walk, talk, all the things. So that was a very like touching job. Like even when I had to leave, I felt like I was neglecting her. So it was a big deal. But I really learned some valuable lessons there. From leaving that demographic, I went to DCPS and I was a paraprofessional. And then my girlfriend, she was in the process of, I believe, completing her second year of her master's. And she told me that, AppleTree will give you money towards it and you can be on the track to get your master's. So I'm a person who I like to just accumulate educational merits and things. So I'm like, do I want to go back to school? I think I do. So applied for the residency program with AppleTree. I got accepted and I finished my degree. And now I'm a lead teacher. So in total, I have 9 years, but it feels like 15. But yes, that's my educational background. And then you said, what is my take on educator wellness?
Yeah, why is educator wellness important to you?
Educator wellness is so important to me because I'm a person where if I don't feel good, I can't fake it. It's let me say this. Sometimes I do fake it because I work with young children, but I prefer not to. And a way that I can do that is by pouring into myself. So I'll say maybe last year, I made it my business to do at least one activity every weekend. And I would try to find the free things. And these are things that make me feel like, okay, I'm not writing up a lesson. This doesn't feel mundane. It makes me feel alive. So I'm all about cultivating joy. So me having activities and fun things to look towards the during the weekend, that made me show up as a better teacher and more enthusiastic to teach and to even learn from the students.
Well, you can hear already in how you said that you are aware of how you're feeling and how you try to change that, right, to promote your own wellness. But let's just dive into self-awareness. What is it to you? And how have you been able to develop self-awareness yourself, both as an educator in your role in schools, but also just as a human?
So I'll say that my definition of self-awareness is being able to self-reflect once you have maybe like exchanges with others that may have left like a little residue on you. Like, I saw that person's energy change. I can pick up on things. And so then just going back and like apologizing or maybe even asking them, hey, did I offend you? Because sometimes people, they don't have the language to maybe approach certain people. So sometimes you have to facilitate that conversation because they may think like, oh, I don't know if I should say something to this person. How are they going to react? Oh, so oftentimes if it's like a little residue on my heart about my interaction with a person, typically I will go and ask them like, I remember our exchange. I hope that that I didn't offend you, da 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 da. And they'll be like, oh no, it's okay. Typically. But yes, that's what educator wellness means to me. And the way that I maintain my educator wellness inside of my personal life and educational, I typically do self-reflections. I'm someone who loves like a psychology. So I'm always reading self-help books and learning how to figure me out better. And also how to figure out other people that, it might be challenging to work with because nobody's going to always be like me 100%. So I like to understand people so I know how to develop better relationships with people.
Yeah.
So definitely doing that, looking at psychology books, doing self-reflections, journaling, maybe going back and looking at something that I journal and trying to get to the root cause of it. So I do a lot of deep diving within myself.
I love that idea of the residue, as you described it, right, for self-awareness, because it's a thing you can like see and feel and like, yeah, do I feel that right now, right? And do I need to be self-aware in this moment to reflect on it?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I want to introduce because Michele Burbank from Ballou STAY is joining us here too. So welcome to the podcast, Michele.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I didn't realize I closed my email, my Outlook thing, and my notification didn't come up.
No worries, no worries. Well, we are really, we believe in the schedule of education and this podcast. So it is always very real about how we do this. But we would love for you to introduce yourself and give a little background on your experience with educator wellness and your own interest in it.
Okay, so my name is Michele Burbank. I am an instructional coach at Ballou STAY High School in DC. It is an opportunity academy. I've been in education for close to 30 years. And yeah, wellness is most definitely a priority. The longer you're in education, at least that's been my experience. And so I was excited when this opportunity came for me to participate in it. And yeah, that's where I am right now.
Great. And we already asked Tiara this question. I'm curious to hear your answer, but how would you define self-awareness? And what have you done to personally cultivate this quality within yourself?
Oh, self-awareness. Yeah. I think this is more part of the maturation process of humans. And it's amplified because I'm in education. I am choosing my words carefully because I'm going through this transformation personally and professionally. I try to be honest with myself always. I have always self-defined as this growth mindset. So I'm constantly reflecting and trying to understand my true self so that I can be this whole person for myself as well as for my students and my colleagues, if that makes sense. And it's again higher on my priority list now as maybe year 5. But now that I'm at year 30, it's taking more of a priority, I should say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk a little bit about how that interacts with others in a minute, because this, this interaction between being self-aware and then accountability to the others in the building, and there's so many relationships, right, in a school building. But I think it does start with, your ability to be self-aware, and to develop the skills, right, to reflect in that way. So I'm curious from both of you, maybe I'll start with Michele, just what do you think helps adults in a school setting develop more self-awareness, and then, like you said, like honesty, right, to be able to to be honest about your impact on others?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it starts with defining what it is personally you're trying to get out of it. I find, because I've been in it for so long, there have been moments where I've walked away from education and I came back. Mentoring young adults who are in education, I tried to let them know, around between year 7 and year 10, you're going to reach a breaking point of some sort, or you're going to reach a point where it's going to be very pivotal for you in this profession, meaning you're going to either walk away from it totally. But I strongly suggest to all the young mentees that you take a sabbatical. I left education. I worked in private industry for many years. And I came back ultimately. And I think it was because of those experiences, I'm able to stay here for the long haul. It's a very demanding profession emotionally. A dear friend of mine says to me all the time, the hardest job that he can imagine is teaching. There's no off day for teachers. You have to show up and show out and to be effective, and that can be draining. So full circle of this conversation of wellness, self-perseverance, preservation is really what I'm saying. Self-preservation they all come hand in hand. And it's a very delicate balance in how we do that. Did I answer
Michele,
your question?
yeah, and I think you were passing it directly to Tiara because you said 8 to 10 years. Tiara, you're right there at 9 years, right? So how are you feeling?
Yes,
Does that seem
and
like an
I'm
honest
ready to
reflection?
dash.
So how does that feel to you?
So let's see. Okay. So I agree with you about that 7 to 10 year mark. It gets really shaky. I do want to remain in education, but I don't want to be fixed to a classroom where I have to monitor this person. This person has allergies and this person can't go here, can't go there. It's just, I feel like there are a lot of tabs running in my brain, and I just want to be able to just like pull back. I don't want to push myself to my limit of all the things that I can manage. I want to scale things back. So I do agree with the sabbatical, or maybe shifting, not being in a classroom with children. So yes, I totally agree with that. I'm trying to like go down that route. My eyes are open for opportunities. And then you said the question, I have it right here. What helps people, especially adults, develop self-awareness? I think having those tough conversations with people that you may deem as they're outspoken or they're very honest, those are the people who are usually, they can see right through what's going on, and it's like, okay, this is this. Because I find that when you give people fluff, it gives them this it's like an enabling, like, oh, it's okay. And no, what you're doing is not okay. Like, I need you to do this, and this is how you're showing up, this is how it's affecting people. So I think having those tough conversations with someone who is like really, really honest will help you develop some self-awareness. And then just I feel like just having some self-reflection, like just having time to self, because oftentimes a lot of people we're just working, cooking. A lot of us don't sit down and have time with ourselves. So I think it's also a part of making time for you, like quality time for you to sit with yourself. What is my body feeling? Why is my body feeling this? Just having those talks with yourself. So yes, I think it's a mixture between the two where you can develop self-awareness. And if that all else fails, you can seek out therapy.
Yeah, you just listed a lot of really great tools right there. And what I'm hearing in this conversation a lot of that self-awareness is about self-reflection, and that requires a little bit of time and space to be with yourself, to be able to understand. That also requires a growth mindset, that you have to want to desire to become more. And then I think it also, I hear some courage in there too, to be able to do the difficult things and have the difficult conversations. And I know in those moments for me, that also requires some vulnerability to be like, I don't know how this conversation's going to go, but I got to say the thing inside of me.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I think that all of this is really difficult in a school environment, because the pace is so fast, and that time to slow down and self-reflect when your nervous system is going like this, it can be really challenging. So I'd love to hear how you all see the connection between the self-awareness within this fast-paced school environment and this call we hear over and over again for accountability. And it's something we hear from administrators about their staff. We need more accountability. It's something we hear from staff about their administrators. We need more transparency. And it's something we hear about that interpersonal between staff members of like, I want to know that you're going to show up the same way that I show up here. So Tiara, can we go to you? I'd love to just hear your reflections on what accountability really means to you within a school environment, with staff members especially.
Okay. I feel like accountability is doing what is asked of you and also doing what's not asked of you. We know in a school setting, the scope of your job sequence, it goes beyond. Like maybe you might have to rock a kid's sleep, or you might have to do something extra. Like I feel like when you get into the profession of education, you cannot be a person who's super rigid on what you're doing and what you're not doing. So I feel like just that being accountable in a school setting or a work setting, just showing up for what you're supposed to do. And also if someone needs you to like bend a little bit, for you to bend. And then also just being mindful of how you show up and how you, what am I trying to say? Being mindful of like how you show up, because sometimes I think some people, they're accustomed to like, being treated a certain way, maybe within their family dynamic. And then you may come across someone in a workplace who is like extremely different. And it can be like this clash where, you don't understand it. You feel like it's some tension there, but all in reality, it may be a person who's trying to professionally, elevate you or give you some tools and tips. But if you are someone who's, that's not your norm, it may feel like an attack. So.
Michele, what about you?
Okay, so accountability and self-awareness, in my opinion, again, go hand in hand in the workplace, because I guess, well, let me take a step back. I'm in a new role this year, and I'm the instructional coach. And all these things that you're bringing up are challenges for me right now, because I'm dealing with a plethora of personalities. I have my own personality. I have my own mindset and perceptions, and we're bringing all those things to the table. So when you talk about this accountability from administration, from central office, and I'm having to disseminate that information to get work out of the teachers, to get pushback. So accountability to me is doing the work. It is being aware of your capacity, your ability, your willingness to do those things. And you have these people such as myself in these other positions who have to work miracles, for lack of a better word, to get it all connected, if that's.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to say how when we have this conversation, I'm kind of struck by the bigness of it, but I'm like, these are big things and they're like
Yes.
hard to define, and you
Yeah.
like absolutely know it when you don't see it. And it's really hard to like say what it is, but also how completely central I think this conversation is to so many of the conflicts and the problems that we're seeing with staff wellness in schools. And so I'm just really grateful that we're taking the time to really try to define what this is. I think it's really important.
I like
So
that
one of the
framing, right?
words, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just wanting to add, one of the words you used earlier is transparency. And you get that a lot from teachers, from the teacher's perspective. It's like we want transparency from the administration so that we can know what's coming down the pike and understand where all these demands are coming from. Yeah, I just think more veterans teachers I'm finding are more self-aware, where you have more novice teachers who may not have figured that out yet. So in all of this big thing that we're discussing, you have all these other factors
Yeah.
that
Well, I
feed.
like, Gracie, how you said, we know when we don't see it, which is, the opposite of how, a lot of things work. And so that makes it kind of difficult. And then Michelle, you're saying like, people are in different parts of their career, right? So a new teacher might not be self-aware in that way. And part of that is probably just the amount of incoming all the time, not knowing how to manage all that and how to manage it in relation to their time and their life outside of work. But also just like anybody in a relatively new job, that like how are you accountable to your coworkers and how do you like cultivate relationships with your coworkers in a positive way? So I want to get to that part, which is like the interpersonal accountability, right? So like what do you think educators can do to be accountable to each other in a positive way? I know, we're working with a lot of schools to develop peer support and mentorship programs right now to make sure that people have that partner. And in some ways it can be an accountability buddy, but it also is just about your personal growth. But I think a lot of times in schools there are, conflicts where, like you said, Michelle, like I come with my style and my perspective, and my way of working, and other people have theirs. Um, and everybody's working really hard in a school, and sometimes you just don't see each other, right? You just don't see the work that the other person is putting in, or you don't see necessarily the angle they're taking at it or why they're coming at it in that way. So what do we do to see each other better and to be accountable to each other better? And Michelle, I'll start.
Okay, I didn't know who you wanted to start with. So what I'm learning is that for me, because I'm such a type A personality and I am direct and I am forward, I'm learning that that's not always the best approach. I'm learning how to listen more. I'm learning how to listen better. I'm learning how to be more patient with the adults that I'm working with. Meaning, as a teacher, I absolutely love teaching. I am the person who would have stayed in the classroom until the end. And the best way I could describe this is with my students, I found myself to be more patient because I always took the perspective of they don't know. They have not been exposed or no one taught them, right? But with my colleagues, it was different. And so in the last 5 weeks, I'm having to learn, well, that may not necessarily have been the case. Perhaps I need to approach them the same way that I approached my students. They don't know. They weren't exposed or whatever the case may be. Building relationships, mending relationships, all of those soft skills that the textbooks like to talk about, or key elements to growth and developing these trusting relationships. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. that's another factor. So if you're looking for results, it's not going to happen immediately. It may take longer in some relationships than it does others.
Yeah, Tiara?
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just how do we, be accountable to each other, right? And not just support each other, but learn how to be accountable to each other, all coming at it in different ways and see each other for our work.
Okay, a way we can be accountable to each other is building those relationships. So with me being a mentor to someone who's never been a teacher, the first few weeks we had to just build rapport, like ask you about where you're from, what type of background do you have? Are you the only child? Like, those things that lets me know, like, oh, this person is really interested in me, and not, oh, I need you to lesson plan. I'm a person where I want to figure all the things out. I don't want to figure them out as I go. So I'm asking my mentor, like, I think it's essential to ask people, what type of learner are they? Are they someone where it's auditory? You need to write it down. But even if you're an auditory learner, I'm always going to push for a planner. I think all teachers and any professionals that are juggling a lot of things should have a planner. Because I was a person who tried to juggle so many things in my head, and eventually I'll forget that one little thing. So I think a way we can all hold ourselves accountable is by having a planner and checking your list and checking it twice. And then being aware of your personality, and maybe like Michele said, I am very, let me say this. In a work setting, I'm very type A. Like, let's get this done. I don't play around. And so for a person who may be passive or super quiet, they might be like, ooh, I'm shaking in my boots. But I'm just a very direct person. So I kind of like, I let my team know because I had 2 new people, and I'm like, hey, I am very like this. I'm not trying to offend you. I just like to get things done. And I have other things outside of work that I do. So my time is precious. So I really want to get things done. So if I ever just know that I want to get it done. Just knowing that I'm a type A personality at work, but I can also alternate between type B because I don't want to be the leader or the planner. I'll let somebody else do it. I'm okay with that. But definitely with my type A personality and having 2 new people work with me, I heard them echo me. And I'm a person where I didn't realize that I can run questions off like do 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 do. And I have 4-year-olds, they're pretty smart. But even still, it's a bombardment of like, oh my goodness, you're asking me to do a bunch of things, or you're like piling me on with questions. So I said to myself, okay, you have to take a step back, slow down your verbiage, maybe ask only 2 questions at a time. And it was a big self-reflection because I didn't hear myself, because it has always gotten me where I need to go. I always get good remarks. But with me training 2 new people, I'm like, whoa, they're copying me. So just being mindful of how you show up when you have like new people in the room who are picking up on your habits.
I love kind of what I'm hearing, that there's this type A way that we can handle this, which is like make your to-do list and like get your planner and like kind of check things off and just make sure you're checking all the boxes. And I think that's like a really great way to do it. And then there's also the type B, which is like, it takes time, and cultural change is really slow. When we work with a partner school and we're talking about staff culture changes, we've just learned that it takes a while. Because just like with your students in the classroom, they learn by making mistakes a lot of the time, right? As they try one thing, it doesn't work. You give them a little bit of space to reflect, and then they start to learn. And that kind of learning, it's really deep, it's really important, and it's not immediate. So I love being able to hold both of those approaches of like, what are the things that we can put in place like right now that might help people stay more organized or more on the ball with each other? And what are the ways that we can hold space for some of the bigger, deeper changes that need to happen within us too? Tiara, I asked for some questions, or if there's anything you wanted to add, and you had a really good question that you proposed for this conversation. So I'm going to ask it to you right now, which is, has there been a time where you navigated, where you tried to give accountability or tried to hold somebody accountable who was a peer, and it didn't go well? And what do you wish that had happened differently or that you had done differently in that situation?
That this was my entire last year. Once my co-lead went on maternity leave. She did the residency program that I'm in. She's been a mentor every school year. And so you know, it was kind of like she was stuck with me because her mentor was pregnant and she's out. So the person who was getting mentored, she had a very like, she wanted to verify like everything. Like it may be the 4th month of school and she's still asking about, our same routine. And for me as a type A personality, that really kind of like agitated me because I'm like, we do this every day. Like our schedule is up. It never changes. If it's going to change, we know it's coming down the pipeline. It's on our event calendar. So I can say that me being type A, I did jump in and do a lot of the things because she was just taking too long to do it and it was just bothering me. And so I just did it. But the way I could have handled that differently is by creating a daily checklist of things that needed to be done at a certain time point, because at that point, I'm holding you accountable for every section of the day. You have to check it off. Did you do it or did you not do it? Maybe you need to circle back around and do it. But yes, I think maybe creating a checklist for her that has time, and then also delegating and holding her accountable with my delegation, because I would tell her and it would be in one ear and out the other, and I would give a reminder, and then I'm back at this same railroad where like, okay, I've given you 2 reminders. Like, what's going on here? So I was very frustrated last year and at my breaking point and just carrying the load of the classroom. So yes, holding people accountable while delegating, because I will jump in and do it. So
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. As we close out this discussion, I wanted to discuss kind of the last layer of this, which is the relationship with administrators, because obviously we're getting a lot of direction all the time, as classroom teachers from our school leaders. And Michele, I want to ask you, if you were talking to a school leader who was upset that the staff just wasn't being professional enough or they weren't being accountable, it's something we hear a lot. How would you coach that school leader to start creating a different kind of culture in the staff?
Um, being honest, first of all, and I believe, because this is happening here at our school currently, I believe that staff, teachers specifically, are reflections of the administration. So what you see in your workers is actually what the administrators are exhibiting. So if you have a lazy administration, you're going to have a lazy staff. And I don't mean lazy in the sense they're just not working, because if you literally stand and watch, you see everyone working, hard. But clearly it's not effective work. And so you're doing busy work over here. But in order to manage your workers, an administrator can't be lazy in evaluation processes. They can't be lazy in deadlines and expectations. So those are the types of things, because management, which is the administration in a school setting, have the tools. DCPS gives them the tools in order to manage workers. And if they're not willing to take the time and take those steps in order to improve their workers and have the time commitment to helping uplift workers, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot in there too. And I in some ways I think it's hard, in other ways there's a simplicity to it, that like you start with people who are the leaders and make sure that they have the support and accountability that they need, and then that can reverberate down. instead of trying to fix it from the bottom up, because that feels way harder. Tiara, what do you want to add to that?
If I had to coach a leader about how the people are showing up, I would first ask them, like, make a list of these things that you feel that are like breakdowns, and then ask them how are you showing up in that same way? Because usually when we come into contact with others, we're usually mirrors of each other. Like, there's something you can gain from someone. Maybe it's a past version of yourself that you have to have patience for. Maybe it's someone, maybe it's your future self, and maybe there's some evolving you have to do, and there's some learning you have to do. So definitely just taking a step back and looking at yourself professionally. And then if I have like a good rapport with that person, I'm gonna wanna ask them, like, what's going on in your internal world? Because oftentimes in our personal world, things will have us so distracted, you don't even recognize that you're not showing up 100%. You might feel like, oh, I'm present, I'm here. And to your staff, it may be like, no, that's not the case. So yes, just having those interpersonal conversations, if you have that type of rapport, and then having a list of the things that you want to see or that you feel are like breakdowns within your staff, and ask yourself, how do you show up in that way? And then creating an action plan. Not all the things, maybe one or two things that you feel like are fixable. Tracking your growth. Like, hey, did I hold myself accountable in this way for this task? Oh, okay. All right. Now I can make sure I want to see that within my staff.
Yeah, I love a plan because this is really big stuff. The self-awareness stuff, the professionalism, the accountability, the staff wellness, they're big, big questions. And I think that's what's wonderful about being able to have an approach where you're like, let's make some goals and let's try. We're going to go on a journey together. We're all going to grow together, and not to expect to get it right perfectly the first time, but to give ourselves some time and space for it all. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really big and really, it's like, feels like it scratched an itch in some way. So I'm grateful to you all, and look forward to continuing it in many ways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.